On Zombie Reddit, today's story is...
I shut my whole family out when they excluded my autistic children. Years later, they knocked on my door devastated. I find myself sharing this story because I need to let off steam and listen to your advice on a situation I never thought I would experience, where the people I thought were closest to me ended up being the ones who caused me the most pain. My older sister and I had a very special relationship during our childhood. With only 2 years difference between us, we were inseparable. We shared everything, from games in the playground to long conversations in our room about our future dreams. Emma, as we will call her, naturally excelled in everything she did. She was the perfect student, with a personality that attracted everyone, combining confidence with kindness. The truth is that I admired her deeply and wanted to be like her. Although our parents preferred her and that sometimes hurt a little, I mostly felt proud to be her sister. My parents never really understood me, but Emma was always there to support me. Our relationship began to change when I decided to go and study business in another state. Emma stayed in our city, and although we kept in touch by phone and text, it was no longer the same as living together. While she was building her career and making new friends in our hometown, I was concentrating on my studies and trying to settle down in a new place. Despite the physical distance, I had complete faith in our connection. Every time I went home, we would reconnect as if no time had passed, chatting until the early hours of the morning like before. She would tell me about her work, the new people in her life, and her future plans. I would tell her about university, my challenges, and my hopes. It was different to before, but it was enough to keep our bond as sisters alive. After graduating, I decided to stay in the city where I had studied because I got a good job. For her part, Emma started a serious relationship with Mark in our city. When she talked about him, you could tell how much in love she was, and I was sincerely happy for her because she deserved someone who valued how special she was. My life also took an unexpected turn when I met Jack at a work event. He was a wonderful man with a smile that lit up everything around him. We hit it off immediately, and soon we were spending every weekend together. Jack gave me exactly what I needed: patience, understanding, and support like I had never experienced before. He made me feel valued and loved. Our relationship progressed quickly, and within a year he had proposed. I was over the moon and I ran to tell Emma. She was happy for me, but I noticed a subtle change in our conversations after that. It was as if the roles had changed. She was no longer just my older sister, but someone with her own life and plans that didn't always include me. I married Jack and everything was going very well. Then came the most important moment: starting a family. We were very excited about becoming parents, and when I got pregnant, I felt that everything was perfect. We had a beautiful baby boy named Ethan, but as he grew older, we noticed that he was developing differently. After many consultations and tests, he was diagnosed with autism when he was 3 years old. Our life changed completely. We dedicated ourselves completely to giving him all the care and support he needed. It was difficult, but we were determined to offer him the best life possible. 2 years later, our daughter Esther was born, who was also diagnosed with autism, although her symptoms were less pronounced than Ethan's. Raising our 2 children required much more than love and patience. We needed time, energy, and resources that demanded the most from us. We adapted our whole lives to meet their needs, going to countless therapies, fighting for their education, and creating a home where they could thrive. It was exhausting but rewarding. Every small achievement felt like a big win. As our family grew closer together, the distance between my parents and Emma grew wider. Emma's calls became shorter and more superficial. She never visited us, and when I went home, interactions with her and our parents felt awkward. It was as if they no longer knew how to treat us, or worse, as if they didn't want to. You could tell how uncomfortable they were with Ethan and Esther, how difficult it was for them to interact with them or understand their needs. It hurt a lot, but I tried not to think about it and focus on the family I was building with Jack. As time went by, Emma met Daniel, a successful businessman. Although he seemed like a good person, something about him didn't give me confidence. Of course, I couldn't tell Emma to stay away based on a hunch alone, so I just gave her a subtle warning. They dated for a while before getting engaged. I was very excited for her and looked forward to her wedding. At first, when she told me, we spent hours talking about the plans and details of the wedding. She even told me that I would be her only bridesmaid. However, as the months went by, I noticed that she wasn't including me in the preparations as I had expected. Emma assured me that everything was under control and that she didn't want to bother me because she knew I was busy with work. At the time I believed her, I trusted her. One day, while checking social media, I saw it. Emma had posted photos from her wedding. There she was, beautiful in her white dress, next to Daniel. The text read, "Newlyweds, I couldn't be happier." In the photos were my parents, relatives, and many guests. I felt like I had been hit. My sister, my best friend, had gotten married without telling me. I called her immediately, but she didn't answer. I tried my parents, but they didn't answer either. Finally, I sent her a message congratulating her and asking why she hadn't told me. She replied hours later, "I'm sorry, sister. We decided to have a small and intimate ceremony. We didn't want any distractions." That's what my children were to her, to our parents, to everyone, a distraction. It broke me. The sister who had always supported me had excluded me from her most important day because of my children. And our parents had allowed it, probably relieved not to have to explain their special grandchildren in front of their upper-class friends. I completely understand that some people prefer not to have children at their wedding, and that's fine. Emma could have simply told me that she preferred that we didn't bring the children, but completely excluding us from her special day was devastating. I didn't reply to her message. Instead, I focused on taking care of my family. Jack was furious at how I had been treated, but I asked him not to confront Emma or our parents. I didn't want any more trouble. Weeks turned into months and then years. I made the difficult decision to cut off contact with Emma and our parents. I didn't want to, but I needed to protect my children and me from the pain they were causing us. I couldn't allow my children to feel inferior or like a burden. Emma tried to contact me a few times, but I couldn't reply. The pain was too deep. Our parents never tried to communicate. So for 2 years, I built a barrier around us, protecting my children from the conditional love of those who should have loved them unconditionally. Jack was my greatest support, and together we created a life full of love, even if it was smaller than I had imagined. Then, a few days ago, there was an unexpected knock at my door. When I opened the door, I found Emma and our parents standing there, with gifts and strange smiles. They said they wanted to reconnect, that they had realized the importance of family and that they missed my children. And then they told the truth: Emma and her husband had been trying to have children for a year without success. She was very sad and said that now she understood how important family is. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. After all the damage they had done to us, they expected to return to our lives as if nothing had happened. I was paralyzed as they tried to justify their behavior, but I couldn't listen to any more. I told them exactly how I felt, that I wasn't going to allow them to use my children to fill their void, and that I wouldn't expose my family to their conditional love. After they insisted on how they had always loved me and that it was my duty as a daughter and sister to forgive them, I asked them to leave my house. I told them that if they really wanted to make peace, they needed to understand the damage they had caused and take responsibility for their actions. Until then, we had nothing more to talk about. That night I received many messages from other family members calling me insensitive and cruel for rejecting my sister and parents when they were trying to reconcile. They called me ungrateful and accused me of having no heart for not giving them a second chance, but how could I? How could I let them back into my life when they had so clearly demonstrated that their love came with conditions? Now I wonder if I'm wrong to shut the door in their faces and refuse to let them back into my children's lives after they treated us as if we didn't matter. Update 1. Hi everyone. It's been 3 days since I met Emma and my parents, and it's been crazy. It's as if that meeting caused a domino effect throughout the family and now everyone wants to have their say. The day after they came to my house, the messages started coming in. The first was from my Aunt Sharon, who I used to get on really well with before all this. She called me out of the blue and, like a fool, I thought she was calling to see how I was. Instead, she gave me an hour-long lecture about forgiving the family and told me I was being unreasonable in rejecting them. She said exactly, they have made mistakes, but they are family and you have to give them another chance. You will regret it if you don't. I tried to explain to her that it wasn't just about forgiveness, but about protecting my children from people who had already hurt them. But she wouldn't listen. She kept repeating that family is family and that I was being too harsh. When I hung up, I was exhausted and more confused than before. But Aunt Sharon was just the beginning. Soon, other relatives I hadn't seen in years started giving their opinions on social media and in messages. They all said more or less the same thing, that I was being cruel, that I needed to forgive and that I risked being left alone. They didn't seem to understand, or maybe they didn't care, that forgiving doesn't mean putting my children at risk of being hurt again. And as if that weren't enough, Emma hasn't stopped sending me messages. They range from tearful apologies to attempts to manipulate me emotionally that only make me feel worse. I'm so sorry, she repeats. I've changed. I didn't understand before, but I do now. Please give me a chance to make things right. I want to believe him. Part of me still misses the relationship we had before. But I can't help thinking that if it weren't for his problems having children, he would never have come looking for me. Would he have turned up at my door with gifts and apologies if he could have had children of his own? Or would he have moved on with his life, not caring about the damage he did to us? My parents, on the other hand, haven't said a word. Not a call, not a text, nothing. At first I was relieved, thinking that maybe they were reflecting on what they had done. But now their silence bothers me. Are they ashamed to talk to me? Or do they just not care enough to try? Jack has been my rock through all of this. He has stepped up more than ever, taking care of the kids' routines so I can have time to process everything. He has been patient and understanding, not pushing me to talk until I am ready. Since my parents came and made this whole mess, Ethan has been more sensitive and Jack is the only one who can calm him down when he has a meltdown. Ethan's crisis reminded me of how much all this has affected my children. He is very sensitive to tension and can sense the stress in the house. I have tried to protect him and Esther from the worst, but it is impossible to completely hide my anxiety and frustration. As I hugged Ethan after his meltdown, I realized how much my family has missed out on. They have never seen Ethan's joy when he achieves something new after weeks of effort, or the pride in Esther's eyes when she finishes a puzzle all by herself. They don't know my children at all, and that's not just sad, it's outrageous. Although I remain firm in my decision despite the family pressure, it would be a lie to say that it is not affecting me. The constant messages, the emotional manipulation, having everyone question what I am doing, it is exhausting. Sometimes I feel the weight of it all and I wonder if I am overreacting. Maybe I should let them come back and give them the opportunity they are asking for. But then I look at Ethan and Esther and I know that I am doing the right thing. They deserve better than to be a last-minute idea in their own family. Tomorrow I'm going to see my therapist. I've been going to her for a while and she has helped me to deal with difficult moments before. I hope she can help me to sort all this out and to stand firm without letting guilt and pressure get the better of me. For now, I'm focusing on what's most important, my immediate family. Jack, Ethan, and Esther are my priority, and I won't let anyone, not even my own flesh and blood, make them feel less than the incredible people they are. But I can't help but wonder, am I being too harsh? Should I give Emma and my parents another chance? Or am I right to protect my children from people who have already shown that they don't fully accept them? Update 2. Hi guys, how are you? A lot has been happening lately, and I never imagined what happened yesterday. I was doing what I always do, picking up Esther from her special class, when everything suddenly changed. As I was walking through the school parking lot, I saw Emma leaning against her car, but she didn't look like her usual confident self. Her eyes were puffy and red, her hair was a mess, and she looked completely devastated. Seeing her like that, so vulnerable and sad, took me by surprise. I was going to tell her that I didn't have the energy for any more apologies, but before I could speak, Emma broke down in tears. It was a deep, painful cry that came from within. She could hardly speak, but through her tears she told me that Daniel had left her. Apparently, he couldn't handle the pressure of their problems having children and had been cheating on her with his secretary. To make matters worse, he had left the day before, leaving Emma devastated and alone. I was speechless. Despite all the bad things between us, seeing my sister suffering so much touched my heart. For a moment, all the pain and past betrayal disappeared, replaced by a great sadness for her. I also regretted not having told her earlier how I felt about Daniel. Without thinking, I gave her a big hug while she cried on my shoulder, like when we were little girls and we comforted each other in difficult moments. After a long time, we calmed down enough to go to a nearby cafe. Esther entertained herself while I sat down opposite Emma, who seemed to be barely holding on. While we were having coffee, Emma opened her heart to me and told me everything. She told me that she had been feeling very lonely since she found out that she couldn't have children. Mom and Dad tried to hide the fact that they had placed all their hopes in her and now she couldn't give them grandchildren. Apparently, it was they who suggested coming to my house after 2 years because Emma's infertility made them think of their other daughter. Daniel showed the worst of himself since he found out. He said horrible things to Emma, like she couldn't do the one thing that was expected of her and that he had put up with all these years in order to get nothing in return. Although my relationship with my sister wasn't good, I wanted to make this guy see sense for talking to Emma like that. The saddest thing was that Emma had prepared a special dinner for him and found him with his secretary in the office. He kept apologizing for everything, the wedding, the years without speaking to us and suddenly turning up with our parents. She confessed to me that she had been jealous of the family I had formed, even with all our challenges. She admitted that she had been so carried away by our parents' obsession with appearances that she had lost sight of what really mattered. Listening to her, I felt many different things. On the one hand, I was relieved that she finally recognized the damage she had caused. On the other hand, I couldn't help wondering if she would ever have reached out to me if her life hadn't fallen apart. I felt that her sudden interest in reconnecting with me and my family came more from her desperation than from true repentance. Emma went on to explain how our parents' expectations had shaped her life and how trying to be the perfect daughter had distorted her priorities and led her to make decisions that hurt those she loved the most. She didn't justify what she had done, but it helped me understand better why she did it. We talked for hours, and in the end I could see that she was truly sorry. She wanted to make amends and be part of my life and that of my children again. We made plans for her to come to dinner next week. I made it clear to her that this was a test and that rebuilding our relationship would take time and effort on her part. It was a small but important step. I knew that if we were going to move forward, it had to be on my terms, putting the well-being of my children first. When I got home and told Jack what had happened, he understood but was also cautious. He understood why I wanted to give Emma a chance, but he didn't want to see me get hurt again either. We agreed to take it slow and always put the needs of our children first. The last thing we wanted was to expose them to more pain and disappointment. Later that night, my parents called me out of the blue. They had heard about Emma's divorce and wanted to know if I had seen her. I told them about our conversation, and there was a moment of silence on the other end. Then, to my surprise, my father admitted that they had made many mistakes. It wasn't exactly an apology, but it was more awareness than he had ever shown before. We talked for a while, and for the first time in years, I felt like my parents were really listening. They asked about Ethan and Esther, showing genuine interest in their lives and challenges. My mother even asked for information to learn more about autism, something I never thought I would hear from her. These changes give me some hope, but I'm not naive. Real change takes time and effort. I have made it clear to both Emma and my parents that if they want to be part of our lives, they need to accept and love Ethan and Esther exactly as they are. There can be no more judgments, no more attempts to change them. This situation has taught me a lot about how complicated family relationships are, about forgiveness, and about the importance of standing up for what is right. It is not going to be easy, and there will surely be problems along the way, but I am hopeful that in time we can build something better, a family based on love, acceptance and understanding, rather than appearances and expectations. Update 3. Hi everyone, I'm back with what I think will be my last update. It's been a while since the last one, and so much has happened that I don't know where to start. Reconnecting with my family has been an emotional roller coaster, but also surprisingly rewarding. I feel like I'm slowly rebuilding the broken pieces of our past and creating something stronger and more resilient. As planned, Emma came to dinner last week. I was very nervous. Jack and I spent days preparing the children, explaining that Aunt Emma would be visiting and that things would be different this time. We didn't know how they would react, especially since they are sensitive to changes in routine and new social situations. When Emma arrived, she surprised us from the start. Instead of the expensive, ostentatious gifts that she and our parents had brought before, she came with a bag full of sensory toys for Ethan and art materials for Esther. It was obvious that she had done her research, taking the time to get to know their specific interests and needs. This simple gesture said a lot. It showed that she was really trying to understand and connect with my children in her own way. The evening was not perfect, not even close. Ethan had a small meltdown when his routine was disrupted by the pressure of having a visitor, and Esther was shy at first and hesitant to interact. But what impressed me was how Emma handled these challenges with patience and grace. During Ethan's meltdown, she didn't panic or look to me for help. Instead, she sat on the floor with him, talking to him softly and helping him with his breathing exercises. It was a scene that filled my heart with many emotions: relief, pride, and hope that maybe my sister was really trying to change. With Esther, Emma didn't pressure her to interact. She just sat quietly at the table, drawing with the art supplies she had brought, until Esther felt comfortable joining her. It was a small, almost subtle moment, but an important one. I could see glimpses of the sister I knew before, kind, understanding, and full of love. When the children went to bed, Emma and I were finally able to talk. She opened up about her marriage to Daniel, revealing that their relationship had been in trouble from the start. The pressure to have the perfect life had blinded her to the warning signs, and their problems having children had only made things worse. It was clear that Emma was accepting her mistakes in Daniel's, and was determined to rebuild their life in a more authentic way. We talked until late at night, sharing stories and crying together, beginning to heal the distance between us. It wasn't easy. There were tense moments and unresolved pain, but it felt like a beginning. For the first time in years, I saw the possibility of us becoming real sisters again, not just in name but in actions and support. A few days later, our parents called to ask if they could visit. I hesitated, unsure if I was ready to let them back into our lives after everything that had happened. But I agreed, making clear the boundaries of what was and wasn't acceptable when they were with the children. To my surprise, when they arrived, they brought books about autism. My mother had tears in her eyes as she hugged Ethan and Esther, apologizing for having been away for so long. My father was more reserved, but I could see that he was making a real effort to connect with the children. During their visit, my parents finally gave us a sincere apology. They accepted that they had been wrong to leave us out of Emma's wedding and to distance themselves because of the children's autism. My father, showing a vulnerability I had never seen in him before, confessed that he had been afraid. Afraid of not knowing how to treat Ethan and Esther, afraid of what people might think, and afraid of facing his own failings as a grandfather. My mother said the same thing, acknowledging that their fear and ignorance had led them to lose themselves so much and to hurt us in the process. Hearing these words was something I had hoped for a long time, but never thought would happen. Although their apology did not erase the pain of the past years, it was an important first step towards healing. I could see that they were truly sorry and wanted to make peace. Over the following week, we created a new routine. Emma started coming around more often, sometimes just to be with the children and other times to give Jack and me some much-needed time off. She even signed up for a course on supporting people with autism, which showed that she really wanted to be a better auntie to my children. Our parents, although they are still learning, are also making an effort to participate more. They ask about the children's therapies and routines, and they even offered to go to a support group for grandparents of children with special needs. Of course, it hasn't all been easy. There have been awkward moments, misunderstandings, and times when old wounds have reopened. I don't expect us to be a perfect family again. But the important thing is that we are all trying. We communicate more openly, we support each other, and we learn from our mistakes. It's a slow process, but one full of cautious hope. The most significant change I have noticed has been in Ethan and Esther. They are flourishing with the extra love and support from our family. Ethan, who used to be wary of new people, now runs to the door when Emma visits, eager to show her his latest sensory toy. Esther, who has always been more reserved, has started to share her art with her grandparents, beaming with pride when they praise her creations. Seeing how they build these new connections makes me feel like we are on the right track. As for me, I am still processing everything. There are moments when I feel very happy to have my family back, and others when I am afraid that it is all too good to be true. My therapist has helped me a lot to manage these complicated emotions, reminding me that it is okay to feel hope and caution at the same time. Jack, who has always been by my side through everything, supports me but is also cautious. We have had many conversations at night about the recent changes, and we agreed that although my family's effort is promising, they have to understand that this is not temporary. If they are in, it is forever. Children need consistency. We will not accept less than that. Looking back to the day they turned up at our door with gifts, I don't regret how I reacted. Standing firm and defending my children was necessary, and it was that moment of sincerity that brought about this change in our family. Sometimes it takes a hard truth to break through years of misunderstanding and prejudice, and I am proud that I stood my ground. To those who criticized me for my reaction, I want to say this: protecting your children and demanding respect for them is never wrong. Forgiving is important, but it shouldn't be at the expense of your family's well-being. Real change takes time, effort, and a real desire to learn and grow. As I write this latest update, I am filled with hope for the future. We are not a perfect family, not even close, but we are learning, growing, and loving each other in a more authentic way than ever before. Ethan and Esther are at the center of this change, reminding us all of what really matters in life. Thank you, Reddit, for accompanying me on this journey. Your advice and support have meant more than I can express. If I haven't said it enough, Please know that your words helped me make some of the most difficult decisions of my life.